A lot of moves today, a lot of cuts, signings, a lot of trades, but unfortunately not the trade we were hoping for. What is up, Finn fans? It's after 4 o'clock. I was waiting until after 4 o'clock to make this video, give you guys all the news and updates on everything, and didn't happen. I'm going to jump right into it. Did not happen. The no deal. Indianapolis Colts did not find what it felt was a fair value offer for Jonathan Taylor and is now not trading the All-Pro running back today, league sources tell ESPN. With no trade materialized today, Taylor is now expected to remain on the physically unable to perform list, making him ineligible to play the first 4 games of the season. Taylor now is expected to miss games versus Jacksonville, Houston, Baltimore, and the Rams. To me, this is kind of messed up. Could he have played in the first 4 games? Yeah. He had an ankle I think he had an ankle injury that he's dealing with, but I don't think he should have stayed on the PUP. I think the Colts were asking for too much. From what I'm hearing, it's firsts, and I think that he should deserve to be traded. He doesn't want to be there, and I think Jim Irsay and the GMs, the Colts GM, were playing hardball. I think the Dolphins gave a fair offer. From what I'm hearing, it was a second with players and other picks. And they wanted that first, and supposedly that's what stopped the deal from happening, is the Colts wanted a first for him, but he has to get a contract. Why would we give a first up for somebody we're going to have to pay 10 to 12 plus $1 million a year and have to give a new contract? That's not how that works. So the Dolphins were like, we're not going to give that, and the Colts say, well, we're not going to accept what you gave, and lo and behold, they now are holding Jonathan Taylor somewhat hostage for the first 4 weeks of the season. Now, the Dolphins can trade for him at any point. I will say this. The Dolphins can still pull off a trade for him at any point from now until October 31st, which is the trade deadline. They could still pull a trade off. But if the Dolphins do pull a trade off, say tomorrow or next week or the week after, he has to stay on the physically unable to perform list for the first 4 weeks. So regardless, he is missing the first 4 weeks of football. Am I going to constantly report on rumors and this, or that about him? No. Unless he gets traded to the Miami Dolphins, I'm not talking about Jonathan Taylor anymore. The season is starting. I have a lot of things I need to talk about, and that is not one of them. So, unfortunately, the Dolphins couldn't pull off the trade. To me, I think it was because the Colts are a little too greedy, and now they are holding Jonathan Taylor somewhat hostage. And I think it's a little messed up, especially because you gave him permission to seek a trade because you know he's not happy being there. And in the end, you're like, well, we're going to keep you. So there's that. Other news from today, a trade did happen, and that is that the Dolphins have traded Noah Igbinoghene to the Cowboys for Calvin Joseph. Now, it's we'll give you one, we'll take your other. And essentially, it's 2 corners that are on 2 different teams that need a new atmosphere, a new playbook, a new team to try to change things up. Is Calvin Joseph going to come in and be, Jalen Ramsey's instant, successor or whatever? No. But I like the move. I like the move bringing in another corner and seeing if we can develop him, especially with one of the best defensive / corner coaches in the NFL in Vic Fangio. So there is that. Now I'm going to talk about the cuts from today. These are your full cuts. We are down to 53. Again, it is now 4:12. We're down to 53. I'll give you by position by position. So we have moved on from James Blackman. We've moved on from Myles Gaskin, which I kind of saw coming. I don't know why I'm like, Myles Gaskin. I kind of saw that one coming. Elijah Higgins and Eric Stolbert have been released. Wide receiver wise, Robbie Chosen has been released. I wouldn't be surprised if they brought him back again. If they had him on the roster, I think the money he has would be fully guaranteed in some way. So I think a lot of what the Dolphins are doing is trying to figure out what they want to do on the physically unable to perform list and on injured reserve and all of that other stuff. So I think he might come back. Chris Coleman, Kiki Kuti, Dawood Davis, and Braylon Sanders have all been cut on the wide receiver front. On the offensive line front, Garon Christian, you know about the Dan Feeney trade. Ryan Hayes has been cut. He'll probably come back. James Tunstall and Alma Olave, which means the Dolphins have no backup center, which is probably Liam Eichenberg is going to be the backup center. How's that going to work? Josiah Bronson, Randy Charlton, Deshaun Hand was released, which is surprising to me. Jalen Twanman and Jamal Woods. Christian Wilkins, Sealer, Brandon Peely, Emmanuel Agba, and Raekwon Davis are your defensive linemen. Brandon Peely making the roster makes me happy. Same thing with Brooks. Your linebackers, Mitchell Agood, Cameron Goudet, A.J. Johnson, Aubrey Miller II, Garrett Nelson, and Malik Reed have been released. I expect Agoudier, Miller, and Nelson to be on the practice squad. Corners, Ethan Bonner, no Igbinoghene trade. Jamal Perry and Bryce Thompson have been released. And the safeties, Ron McKinley III, Keydron Smith, and Trill Williams. I expect at least two of those guys to be back on the special teams. Now, I still am waiting on news about Jalen Ramsey. Is he going to start on the fixed? He's probably, the thing is, if they put him on the injured reserve, say they did it before 4 o'clock or before a certain time, he's done for the year. So I think the Dolphins are waiting for him to be for the ability to put him on the IR, and it only be 8 weeks that he can come off the IR. One other thing of note was Christian Wilkins was back at practice today. Oh, no. Before we get to Christian Wilkins, the Miami Dolphins have restructured Cedric Wilson Jr.'s contract. So the Cedric Wilson staying with Miami with $2 million shaved off of the $7 million salary. For 2024, Wilson will have to Wilson was to have 7.3 non-guaranteed salary with an 8.3 cap hit if he was on the team, and $1 million dead money in 2024 hit if he was cut. All those numbers have been eliminated with the contract change from 3 years to 2. Has $2 million incentive for 2023. The Dolphins now have about $17 million in cap space after the Cedric Wilson restructuring and the Dan Feeney trade, and now even more. They're probably around like $18 million with the Noah Igbinoghene trade exchange. The Dolphins, they can save money carrying it over to 2024, but the big part of Cedric Wilson's contract is it went from having him on the contract for 2 more years to next year. So they can move on from him. Let me see if I can, if they updated his contract, so we can get a full look at it. They did. So now his cap hit this year is $5.7 million. His cap hit next year is $4.5 million. And then they move on. So they restructured his deal big time there. And then, like I said, Christian Wilkins update. He was at practice today, and he did meet with the media, and he said his thought process now is to just play football, be a team player, all that stuff. One of his quotes is, "No one wants to be a Miami Dolphin more than me." So it's going to be interesting to see how all that pans out and how all that plays out, and if the Dolphins, now like I said, I could see him getting a contract extension in year, kind of like we did with Devontae Parker, but it's going to be interesting to see how that all pans out. But there is still some news that needs to be broken on what they're going to do with Jalen Ramsey, what they're going to do with some, I think Nick Needham is still on the PUP, so he's probably going to miss the first 4 weeks, but he hasn't been released. There's a lot of ongoing stuff that could happen that I will give you videos on. But overall on today, I'm a little disappointed. Not that we didn't get Jonathan Taylor, right? I'm fine with it. You always got to be, my mentality is always, I'd rather be surprised than let down. Never once was I like, we're going to get him. I always just gave you the news, and then we'll see what happens. But I'm more disappointed in the fact that the Colts are just going to kind of keep him. He doesn't want to be there. They granted him a trade offer, and now they're like, well, we're going to put you on the shelf for 4 weeks. And then maybe we'll figure something out after that. Like, that kind of bothers me. Smart on the Dolphins move of the trade with Noah. Smart on the Dolphins move with the restructuring of Cedric Wilson Jr. Some of the cuts surprised me. Like the cut of Chosen. Didn't see that coming, but I also did not see that coming. I think Braxton Berrios and Craig Kraft are your number 3s. I think Braxton Berrios is definitely your number 3. I think he is the guy. Obviously, Cedric Wilson Jr. with his contract restructuring also is going to be implemented in there. Sorbert being cut, not so surprised there. I'm trying to think of other cuts that kind of surprised me. There was one cut that surprised me. The Alma Olave move kind of surprised me. But Deshaun Hand being cut, I think that's the one that surprised me. I thought he would have made the roster. He was, from what I heard and what I saw during preseason, he was doing really good. But now I think the biggest question going into the season and the next 2 weeks is, what are we doing at backup center? We don't have a backup center officially. It's another situation where we're going to take another guard and have him be a center like we did with Connor Williams. Now, here's the thing, and I know a lot of you guys are going to ask this, the claiming process. A lot of people are like, how does that work? So essentially it's your draft position last year. So like what was it? The Houston Texans were one? Or the Chicago Bears? Chicago Bears were one. So the Chicago Bears are the number 1 team on the claim, and then it goes from there. So I think the Dolphins were in the teens. You put out a claim. Certain players are claimable. Other players are just free agents. But I think that all starts 24 hours. So tomorrow at 4 o'clock is when teams can start claiming players and teams can start making those types of moves. But again, if other stuff breaks while, for the rest of the day, whether it's the Dolphins announce what they're going to do with Jalen Ramsey or the Dolphins are going to announce all these things. Let me double check Twitter one more time to just make sure any of that news didn't break while I'm talking to you. Barry Jackson says Dolphins ultimately unwilling to trade a first-round pick or a huge package of other assets for Taylor. The Colts stuck to their high demands. Again, to me, it's like they're keeping him hostage. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Wow, the Patriots have waived backup quarterback Bailey Zappi. That's interesting. Yeah, so nothing has broke as of me recording this, but if any other news breaks, I will give you guys a video later tonight giving you more updates on more things that have happened. But I fully expect the Dolphins to put Jalen Ramsey on IR and have him be ready after 8 weeks. Will he be ready after 8 weeks? We'll see how that all pans out. But that's kind of the news that happened today. You got the no deal for Jonathan Taylor. You got the trade for Noah Igbinoghene. You got the Cedric Wilson Jr. restructuring. You got all the cuts, and you got Christian Wilkins is at camp or practice. It's not camp anymore. It's practice, getting ready for week 1 in LA. But that's what I got for you. I got a ton of videos planned. I got some surprise videos, ESPN's top 100 ranking. The Dolphins have a lot on there. I'm going to give you guys my storylines for the AFC East. We're going to be talking about predictions and expectations for all of the parts of the team going into the season, all that stuff. And yes, I will be talking about if I'm doing fantasy draft or not. I'm leaning towards no, but unless I could be convinced otherwise. It's just a lot on my plate, so I don't know. But I'll let you guys know in the next video, I promise. But on that, I'll see you guys either later tonight or tomorrow. But like usual, stay classy and fins up.